This conference will now be recorded.
So this person did a cash flow statement on Accenture. And of course, it's the consulting firm, and they have locations various places. The personal cash flow from operating activities. Now, the key thing I want to see is this bottom line. You can put the details in. This is public information, but it showed the net cash flow by operations. Then it showed the cash flow from investing activities. You can put the detail in, but it's the totals that I'm interested in. And then the cash flow from financing activities. And so, and then we look at the net increase, decrease in cash flow. So this company, 8 million, 8 million, 6, 7 million, 8 million, 8. So we see that, okay, we're going from 20 to 22. And at the end of the day, for this company, as we look at the cash flows from 20 to 22, you see that that cash, was positive to the first year, but it went down the next 2 years. But the cash they had was 6, 8, and 8, 8, 8, and 7. This person went on to make a couple of statements about operating, investing, and financing activities. And then they came up with a summary I would invest. So this is on, this format is on that assignment. You simply find a company, uh, typically in Texas or small companies, don't need any Nikes or whatever like that. Just medium-sized companies where you got to look at and see what happens. So have your company available for me next class period, the company that you're going to do your research on. Are there any questions on this project? It's simply you're looking at the cash flow statements for 3 years and tell me whether you would invest 1 million. Any questions? Okay. The next thing we have are the cash flow problems. There are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 cash flow problems. Everybody on a team gets one of these problems to work. So team leaders, you should begin to sign these problems now. And of course, the way these work, 1 and 2 are going to be your easier problems. 3 is fairly easy also. 4, 5, and 6 are going to be a little more difficult. So for people who are in the C category, then they're doing 1, 2, and 3. People in the BA category, you're doing a 4, 5, or 6. So this needs to be, what you're working on needs to be decided now. And team leaders, you need to send that to me uh, in about the next couple of minutes. Send me who's been assigned to work on what problem. Any question on what I'm saying here?
What if I still haven't been assigned to a team?
Well, Dave, since you have not been assigned to a team, you can work on problem one.
For sure.
Is there anybody else who has not been assigned to a team?
I haven't been assigned to a team, but I don't mind working by myself.
Okay. So I'll give you router number 3. No, I'll give you 2. Anybody else not been assigned to a team? So team leaders, you should be placing in the chat for me. Uh, Schofield, you say you have not been assigned. So why don't you do number 3? So Dade has 1, Schofield 3, and Shrouder 2. And if none of you all are on teams, then maybe you all need to create a team. So look at it, Dade, Schofield, and Strouder in terms of being on a team together. Okay. Now, team leaders, you should be going on and making the assignments because we're going to come back and we're going to begin working on these problems today in a few minutes. Let me come through and review briefly. We have the accounting theoretical framework that essentially consists of a company has thousands of transactions every year. We summarize those transactions in 4 statements: the income statement, the statement of owner's equity, and the balance sheet financial position statement, and then the statement of cash flows. That's the new statement that we're looking at. And we said that we have to, you know, be aware. We can't just look at an income statement and a statement of retained earnings and balance sheet. We got to see what's happening with the cash in the company. That statement has 3 parts: operating, investing, and financing. Operating, investing, and financing. The purpose of a company is to, once it's formed with cash and the owner putting in common stock, this cash needs to go up, hopefully through earnings. Okay. So that's the goal of what the company is doing. And when you do your report, you're looking at, okay, a time frame of 3 to 5 years. How does this company look? And will I make an investment of $1 million? You also are going to make that assumption with the homework problem that you're working on. So with the homework problem that you're working on, you will include a statement of whether you would invest $1 million or not in that company. So you're always making those decisions. The income statement and balance sheet done on an accrual basis, but we have to be concerned with solvency. And so the statement of cash flows go tell us, okay, are there some issues in how those statements were prepared? You can use different accounting methods, inventories, etc. FIFO, LIFO, and weighted average, and come up with different results, but they may not be reflecting the cash that you have. And so this statement of cash flow helps us work with timing, and it also helps us work with fraudulent activities. 4 parts of the statement of cash flow: operating, investing, and financing. Operating is what the company is doing: Macy sell clothes. Operating activities is like a salary to you. Okay, if you had a salary, a company is supposed to have income from selling uh, its inventory. Just like you, when you have a salary, you invest in assets. We'd like to see a company invest uh, Macy's, including more stores. So we like this number to be negative. If it's positive, then Macy's is selling stores. That's not a good source of cash. Finally, we have the financing activity. This is how you finance the company. Now, investing, we're investing in other companies or assets. Financing, we're looking at our long-term debt, our common stock, and the payment of dividends. The payment of dividends. That's what in section 3. And what we said was that in a good company, some of you, if you had $100,000 in cash, and if you paid $30,000 to buy additional assets, $20,000 to pay off debt, then you'd have $50,000 left over and you'd be in good shape. Okay, personally, that's where everybody would be. So when we have a company, a corporation, we like to see a million, something like $1 million in operation, could be more, could be less. We want to see investments negative. That is, the company is expanding. We want it to be paying off debt and paying dividends and still have cash left over. So this is your guide in terms of how you analyze a company. Is operations positive? If it is not positive, then the company has a problem. So if you look at a company and operations positive, then it's problematic. Now we would look at that over a period of time. Investments, negative. We wanted to be buying long-term assets, not selling long-term assets. When a company sells long-term assets, it's like you personally selling your car. You're not going to be able to do too much afterwards without your car. And so that's why we want that to be negative, that you aren't selling your car, but you're keeping your car and buying other assets. Initially, a company issues common stock and long-term debt, but we want to see it paying off long-term debt. We want to see it paying dividends and can decrease common stock at certain times. But we want to see this category -2, or it can be even, but in a good company it's negative, and then we have a positive cash flow. So the amount of cash flow from operations minus the investments, in this case minus the financing, equals the change in cash. So these top 3 show the change in cash. When you net these together on a statement of cash flow, they have to equal the change in cash. Operating items are going to be the net income as a source, net loss as a use, depreciation because that's subtracted in getting net income. It is not a cash item, current asset, current liabilities. All of these items, the regular current things in operations. The long-term assets are here in part 2, and then common stock and dividends are in part 3. And this chart shows that. But you have a template, and there's an Excel template in course content, and it lays out everything and what I'm going to be asking you to do in your problem today. This statement shows operation and it shows what's in here. And what we have are sources of cash and uses of cash. And we worked this problem last time. And we compare what are the sources and uses in each area. In this case, we had a -250 in operation, so we knew it was a problem. But we add up the sources for an operation and the uses, we get the net change. Because the uses exceeded the sources, it was negative. We came down to investments. We had 75 in sources, 300 in uses, a minus 225. That was fine. But then when we got to the third part that issued common stock and bonds, paid a small dividends. So their sources was from part three. We would rather be seeing, just like you personally, you don't want to be borrowing money when you graduate. You want to have a salary to take care of things. If you don't, it's problematic. If you got to borrow to take care of your bills. And in this problem, the change in cash flow is zero. So 250 plus 225 is 475 minus 475. Now, the way we get the cash flow statement, we got the net income or loss, a loss in this case, and then we have all of these balance sheet accounts. And we have to go through all of these balance sheet accounts, okay, to determine, given that change in cash, and in this case that change was zero, put out in all the other accounts so that the cash, the change is negative. We could have had a lot of income in operations, but invested and paid out dividends, and we'd have been okay. But if operations is the problem and we got money from down here in part three, then that's not the best area. So we're going to be going through looking at the income statement, looking at the balance sheet. And I gave you 4 things to do first when you do the cash flow statement. And they're in here in red. I told you the first thing you did was you look at the change in cash. It was zero in this problem. That's the answer to the problem. Zero. I told you the second thing you would do would be you go to income statement. We had a loss. That's the second thing you put in. If it's a loss, it's a use. If it's income, it's a source. And of course, as we said, you have to work with the statement, fight to understand it, because otherwise you'll have to listen to what other people tell you to invest in. And you will need to invest. The third thing I told you to do
Can you go
was
back to number 2? Where are we looking for that loss at again?
income
Number
statement.
1, changing cash.
Changing cash came from the balance sheet.
Oh, I thought that was
Okay?
from the income statement. So changing cash comes from balance.
That's the answer. And in this case, the change in cash is zero. That's the answer to the
Okay.
problem. The
And
other
then number 2.
3 areas have got to come to zero. So the first thing you do, you come to the balance sheet, see what the change in cash is, and you go and put that in here. So in this case, we had beginning cash was 100,000,
Mhm.
ending cash was 100,000.
So the change is 0.
That's the first thing you do. And that's the
Okay.
answer to the problem. Parts 1, 2, and 3 have got to come to zero. The second thing I told you to do was put in the net income, our net loss. If it's income, it will be a source of cash. If it's a loss, it will be a use of cash. That's the second thing. The third thing we're going to do is put in depreciation. We're going to come to the income statement and we can get it, or we can come to accumulate depreciation. We can get that change,
So the net loss was 75,000.
75,000.
Okay.
So the depreciation change, it went up by 25,000. That's the change. And notice we're working with the change.
Okay. And that's on there. Okay.
And
Was
finally,
25,000.
I told you the fourth thing to do was to what? Put in the dividend. If you get those four things right, you'd have a C on the test. Now, the beginning retained earnings is 300,000. We had a net loss of 75. Our ending retained earnings of 200. So we backed into 25,000 being the dividend. What amount of money would produce a dividend? So that was the question mark. So this is a statement of retained earnings. Beginning retained earnings. If it were net income, we'd have added it's a loss. We subtracted, so we had 225. We got to get down to 200. So the dividend was 25,000. That is the fourth thing that you put in as a use. It's always a use. Are there any questions on the first four things that you're supposed to do in preparing a statement of cash flow?
If it's an income, we add it, right?
It'll be on the
Like,
source. Remember, on the statement of cash flow, you've got sources and uses.
hmm
Sources are on the left, uses are on the right.
So do we add all the sources and then
And
subtract it by the use, or how does that work?
we add the 25 and the 25, we got 50 in sources.
Mm-hmm.
We add 75, the 150, the 50, and the 25,000, and that gives us uh,
300.
300,000 uses. We
Okay.
take the
Thank
difference, that's 250. Any question? So it's not the hardest of thing, you just have to go through. Now in operations, if you have a decrease in a current asset, it's a source. If you have an increase, it's a use of cash. If you buy a computer, then your cash goes down. If you sell that computer to someone, your cash goes up. So that's why decreases in current assets are sources, increase in current assets are uses of cash. Liabilities are going to work just the opposite. An increase in the current liabilities, such as if you got a student loan, is a source of cash. A decrease in the current liability, such as you pay that loan off, is a use of cash. And then I told you just to take my word for it that we don't want the long-term gain up here in operations. You see, the actual loss from operation was 100,000. So we're gonna show this 25 as a use, so that it's not, so we just add the back. Then we said we put in the amount of cash that got down here in part two. Now let's look at part two. Part two comes from what? The equipment, which went up by 300,000, so that's a use. And then we have the investment. The investment cost us 50. The gain on it was 25. And so the change was 50,000. If something cost us 50 and we paid and we made a gain of 25, then we got 75,000. So we net back to the 50. But on the statement of cash flow, we show the 75,000 on the sale of that stock. We show it here. So I guess this is a better. Let me just put it here, 75. So we took the gain out and put the proceeds down here. We net back to the change of 50. But we don't want gains on long-term asset in operation. We could be fooled that because these are non-recurring, so we could be fooled that this company's doing well. Then with our financing, we're going to look at what the common stock, the long-term debt, and the dividend. So that's all it is. And then you have to, make sure that your part 1, 2, and 3 equals the change in cash. Are there any questions?
I don't have any questions, but I feel like I'm just going to have to rewatch this just to grasp everything because I'm not sure where I get these three things and then put it in the chart. Like I'm a little confused.
Okay, what parts of the chart? What about the first 4 things?
The change in cash, income statement, depreciation change, dividends,
And the change in cash comes from where?
the change in cash, the difference,
It comes from what statement?
the balance sheet.
That comes from the balance sheet. Our second
The
thing, the
rest come
income, is going to come from where?
from the income statement.
Then our depreciation can come from the income statement or accumulated depreciation. It can come from one or the other. Notice on the template, it's got where the current assets go. If the current asset decreases, it's here. If it increases, it's here. So in our problem, accounts receivable decrease is the source. Inventory went up, it's a use. So the template has it. Here are the current assets. Typically, we're working with account receivable and inventory. If they go up, they're over here as a use. If they go down, they're over here as a source. They'll always be right here, typically account receivable and inventory. Account payable is typically the only liability that we're working with. If it goes up, it's a source. In this case, it went down, it's a use. So if we look at payable, we'll see that the account payable went down by $50,000. So it's a use. So at the top in part 1 is going to be the net income alone and a gain if you have that. Then you go to account receivable, inventory, and account payable. Account receivable, inventory, and account payable. Those are your current items, and you got to put them in there as sources, and it's telling you. If the current asset goes up, it's a source. If it goes down, it's a use. Excuse me, if it goes up, it's a use. If it goes down, it's a source. Liabilities are just the opposite. If they go up, they're a source. If they go down, they're a use. So what we're going to do is this. All of you should have a problem. All of you should have a problem. So with your problem, I want you to do those first 4 things. So I'm going to give you 15 minutes to do the first 4 things. Shouldn't take you that long. Everybody has a problem. You got this Excel template, get a Word one, or whatever you want. And you go to that template, and you put in items 1, 2, 3, and 4 the dividends. Is that clear to everyone? You go into your problem and you put those 4 things down. Does everybody have a problem? All right. Go to your problem and this is your homework for next time. We're working on it now. So this is the homework that's due next time. We're working on it now. So everybody go to your problem, get you a spreadsheet because eventually you have to do this on the exam. But you go and you put those first 4 things down. So I'm going to check back in 10 minutes to see if everybody has the first 4 things down.
You just said 15 minutes.
Did I say 15?
You did.
All right. Begin work and then plan. Which problem you got, Ebony?
We're trying to figure it out right now.
Y'all supposed to have that figured out. All right, y'all get that figured out. Everybody work on their problem. So I'll come back in 15 minutes since y'all was still allocating those problems. But everybody on each team needs a different problem. And if you're trying to get A or B, then you know you need to be on 4, 5, and 6. If you're just trying to get a C, then you need to be doing 1, 2, or 3. So let your team leader know what you're doing. Of course, team leaders are trying to get A's and B's and co-leaders, so we know that. All right, so 15 minutes, 6:35, 6:50. I'm gonna come back at 6:50, and I want to see some answers from everybody.
Where can I find the questions?
Okay, if you go to assignments, you'll see 6 problems, and your team leader should have assigned you 1. If not, let me know, and I'll assign you 1. Who's that? Who's that saying that? Who's?
It was me, Kendall.
And so, do you see him now?
It's the cash flow homework.
Yep, cash flow homework.
Okay. Okay, yes, I got it. Thank you.
You're welcome.
in here with us. We cut in with the one and only. Yeah. Oh my God, we cannot wait for y'all to get out of the chat. These ladies are cutting the mold. I am so proud of them. She said that right. Mm-hmm. This is Jameson out. We all out. Hey. Oh my God, listen, you don't understand. You are our idol, okay? Watching you do what you did so young, like it really got us started with our music. It showed us how to put it out there. Me, come on. You and I say that all the time. I'm thinking people just blowing smoke. Well, we're not. Yeah, no, we definitely don't do it because we know
Right? Hot one. See what you mix with. Ooh, harbor boy. Yeah. Yeah, that's real milk.
It's all my fault.
You didn't grant Kirkwood access to our servers.
Yeah, but hacking for me is how Charlie Lee found him.
You and I grew up together. We both taught to win at all costs.
Yeah, but I don't like the cost of this, Josh.
You're paid too hard on yourself.
I just got the news. I hope that son of a bitch rots in hell.
He's not guilty.
He said they had evidence.
We both know evidence can be manipulated.
Okay, Dad, listen. You need to swear to the police that he's a member of our red team. And that he was listening to security on our orders.
Why the hell would I do that?
Because he can get the firm back online.
He can reverse what cybercrime is calling a state-level virus before we lose every important client we have.
I've seen him work. He can.
Then I'll say whatever you need.
Great, thank you. I'll help. But it won't be enough. Tamika, tell me to bring the car around. Oh, Daniela. Hey, my assistant said you were coming by. This is Agent Fields, DEA, Daniela Hernandez. A pleasure. Nice to meet you. I was told it was urgent. It is. My digital researcher's been arrested and he's done nothing wrong. I need him released. What's he accused of? Hacking. But the IT department didn't know that the head of our law firm asked him to test our cybersecurity system. Just show LAPD the paperwork giving your researcher the assignment. You can't, can you? Daniela, really? Come on. You're not even bringing your A game this time. I'm not playing any games, Beverly. It's the truth. Something went wrong. Our entire firm is shut down. I heard about it this morning. You did? Mm-hmm. Well, look, we're running out of time. I need him back so we can fix it. Okay. I do this for you. You give me Don Mayfield. He killed Connor Hanks. Detroit Weeks. You have no proof. What about Kenny Toombs? The roadie slash drug dealer who was killed in a robbery aimed at Bobby Howard. I believe your choir boy was there to hit Bobby. You're just making shit up. We've got the whole thing on video. Daniela, when Dom tried to move those drugs he stole, we'll know. And we'll get him. You're fishing. It won't work. Why do you always get caught up in this shit? Only thing that I'm getting caught up in is trying to get my research assistant released. You help me or not, Dom Mayfield for your research assistant. Or Bobby Howard. Well, Bobby's my client, so I can help you there. Really? Trust me. Okay. I can.
Are there any questions? Does anybody have any problems with any of the
Yes, how
problems?
do you find the dividends? Like, do we supposed to say it on the balance sheet or?
Or like, how do you find it when it's like a net income? I seen how you did how to do the loss,
And
but is it the same with income?
if it's an income, you would add it. beginning retained earnings plus the net income less the ending retained earnings gives you the dividend. So if that was the case here, if we had income, and this were income, it would be plus that 75,000. So we would have had here 375.
So we subtract the dividends when we put it
That's
in.
what we're looking for. And so
I
if
mean,
the ending retained earnings is 200,000, the dividend is the difference between these top two numbers and ending retained earnings. It's the number that's going to cause uh, the this number to move. You know, what dividend would make this 200,000? So in this case, if we had 75 at income, then the dividend would have been what? Would have been
is it
170. It would have been 175. So dividends is always the number after we merge together in, added income and subtracted loss. It's the difference between that number and the ending retained earnings. Ending retained earnings was 200, beginning was 300. Any questions?
So if it's a net loss, you subtract to get the dividends, and if it's a net income, you add.
That's correct.
Okay.
Anyone else?
okay? Last thing. So for question 5, the beginning of retained earning is 300, the net income is 550, and then the ending retained earning is 700. But would the dividends just be 150?
That sounds
No,
funny. Who's talking? Okay. So Thomas, you're talking. A lot of noise going on. Okay, so Thomas, you do a similar thing. You add, if you were there, you're going to add your beginning return. You're going to add your beginning return earnings to the net income, get a subtotal, whatever that might be. So if it's a loss, you subtract. If it's income, you would add it. Then you get this number, the subtotal. You subtract the ending retained earnings, and the difference becomes the dividend. It's similar to a statement of retained earnings.
I have a question on the problems. For the net income, it have like the return earnings, but like for the, I mean, not the net income, the net loss, it have like the remain earnings, but on the net income, it don't have that.
What problem are you talking about?
I'm talking about 4 and what else? Yeah, really 4 and 2 don't have it, or 1.
Okay, one had a net income 350. Okay, that's one. Two had a net income of 800,000.
No, I'm not trying to say what's the net income. I'm saying it don't have like the return earnings on there, like the net loss. I don't know. Never mind. I
Okay,
guess.
you get the retained earnings numbers from the balance sheet. So in the first problem, net income was 350. Beginning retained earnings was 300. Ending retained earnings was 550. You use those numbers. So everybody is doing that. Whatever your problem is, you have the retained earnings, and you have a net income. You put them in that formula.
Does the dividends always go on the U side?
Always goes on the U side.
Can you repeat that formula one more time with the retained earnings and net income?
Okay.
You add it if it's a net income, and if it's a loss, you subtract.
Beginning retained earnings. So you see this, correct? Beginning retained earnings
300,000.
and ending retained earnings. That stays, it's whatever it is here. Beginning retained earnings, ending retained earnings. If you have a net loss, you subtract. But if this were income, you'd add it to get your subtotal. Then we subtract the ending from this subtotal to get your dividends. We subtract the ending return earning from this third line here to get the dividend. That's what we're looking for, the dividends. Any questions? You finished, Schofield?
Is depreciation expense, is that accumulated depreciation?
You can get it two ways. It'll show up on the income statement, or you can take the difference between the accumulated depreciations on the balance sheet. So you got two ways to get it. So in our demonstration problem, we could have taken the difference between the beginning and ending retained earnings, and we would have had 25,000. Are listed in these problems on the income statement also. So you got two places to get it. Here are the difference between these two numbers.
And that only stays on the source side, right?
That's always a source.
Gotcha.
Now we're calculating this, in a technical way, but at the end of the day, you got to tell me whether you'd invest $1 million in this company or not. So based on this, this year's data, you got to tell me what. So that's the end result. What we're trying to do, be able to have information to make an investment decision.
So you said we want the cash to stay the same
We
for the
want to go
change to be
up.
zero to go okay because okay, so we
We
want
want
it to go up, we want it to be
looking
positive,
at
which
the
I mean makes
change.
sense, yeah.
Yeah, we're looking at the change in cash.
And so I mean technically if we just look at the change in cash, is that all that matters? Do we have to do the rest if it's a
Okay.
positive
Okay.
change in cash? Does the rest matter?
Okay. Let's look at it this way, Ebony. Uh, you have three bachelors who are talking to you. So we're kind of assuming now, don't know, but just saying, suppose there are three bachelors. They have 100,000 in the bank. Bachelor one got his 100,000 by working. Bachelor two got his 100,000 because he sold his car and his jewelry. Bachelor three got his 100,000 because he took out student loans. Which doesn't matter. They all got 100,000 in the bank. Doesn't matter.
It matters. I get your point.
So when you look at companies, you got to be able to make that same determination.
Got you.
So does everybody have the first four things done? Is there
Yes,
any?
but whenever I total out my stockholders, like it doesn't match. Like I don't know if I did something wrong.
What you mean? What are you talking about now?
Cause
Now I'm just
number like
telling me.
for number five, like I think the common stock. Well, yeah, you could just.
I'm on five. Oh, she wants an A, I guess. That's good. So what are you telling me about number five?
Whenever like I did the totals for it, it comes out to be 1,300,000. But then whenever like I do the change, it's more than that. It's like 1,900,000, if that makes sense.
Yeah, but you're not working with stockholders' equity. You work with common stock and retained earnings. Just like you're not working with total assets, you're working with each one of these accounts. So in that problem, you're looking at cash. What was your change in cash? What's your answer?
Yeah. Is that number five?
I thought it was number five. Maybe it's out of order or something.
No,
Just the
that's the
five
correct
you
five.
say what?
That's the one I had. The
Yeah,
five.
I put the numbers in wrong. That's my bad. Sorry.
Well, I will say for team three, I was very impressed. They came to my office. The whole team came.
Mhm.
Whole
Mhm.
team was working. So they all came and everybody was working on the problem. So I was very impressed with team three for that.
Thank you.
But if I don't, yeah. So I was pleased. That means you all gonna be in good shape. Other teams need to do the same thing. Everybody needs to come, and everybody needs to be working on the problem.
I agree. So, what is your office hours again for us in
They
the back?
okay. The on-campus hours on Tuesdays and Thursdays. I'm there from about 1 o'clock to 2:30, and
Mm.
that's every Tuesday and Thursday. 'Cause I don't finish up 11 o'clock class. I don't go out to lunch or anything, so I'm always there on campus on Tuesdays and Thursdays. Then I can be there virtually on Mondays and Wednesdays. You just have to tell me, let me know ahead of time when your team wants to meet, and we can meet virtually, or we can meet virtually later on Tuesdays and Thursdays.
Where are
Okay.
you
All
located again?
on the third floor. I guess it's 370. It's across. It's a big area across from the restrooms on the third floor.
Thank you.
You're welcome. So does everybody have one, two, three, and four done now? Anybody don't have one, two, three, and four done?
So, if depreciation increases, that is a gain, a use.
Now it's a source because you subtracted that depreciation in getting your net income. So when you got ready to get net income, you subtracted depreciation. It was not a cash expenditure. That is, you have a car now, you bought a car, it goes down in value every year. So you know it's going down in value, but it's not an expense in that regard. You ignore it. So
Okay.
if we subtracted it out, then we got to add it back because it was not a cash expenditure. So you have to think differently, with the statement. But this is the only way you can analyze your companies and make a decision. The people who were getting food by the Ponzi people, they didn't do this. They just listened to what the people said. If they had simply looked at what the cash looked like, because what's happening in a Ponzi scheme, all the cash is down here between people putting money in and then they paying people, but they don't have it in net income. So in the Ponzi scheme, they continue to get people to invest in the company, but they don't earn any net income. They have no net income. This is zero. They may fake it. Okay. And they just get people to, they say, okay, we made 550,000. They say we made that. And we're going to make more next year. Notice one thing, they got land in here, which is not an operating item. But they continue to say that. You look at that. If you don't do a good statement of cash flow, you say what? But they made a lot of money. I'm going to give them my $1,000,000. So remember, when you turn these homeworks in, you have to tell me whether you'd invest $1,000,000 in the company or not. So this is on this problem. And then on your publicly traded company, you got to do the same thing. Any questions? All right, well, let's see if we can look at receivables for these companies, for these problems. So you should have those first four things done. Then we come to account receivable. Account receivable was 75,000 at the beginning of the period, 50 at the end of the period. But that's two. Let me get to one. In one, receivables were 120,000 at the beginning of the period, 200 at the end of the period. So people working on problem one, where's account receivable going to go? Is it going in part one, part two, or part three?
Part one.
Is it a source or a use?
Source.
And why is it a source then, Dave?
Is it a net income?
The receivables went up. So whenever the asset goes up, we said that that would be what? If the asset goes up, that means you had expenditures to do that. So that's a use.
Okay, okay.
So everybody working on problem one, you should be showing account receivable as a current asset in part one. And because it went up, this 75,000 is a use. What about problem two? What's happening with receivables there? What happened with receivables? Speak now.
It decreased.
So it's going to be a source or use.
A source.
It's going to be a source. Let's go on to problem three. What did receivables do? Problem 3, what did receivables do?
Increase.
Is it a source or a use? If you buy a computer, what
It's a
happens?
source.
If you buy a computer, Todd, what's going to happen with your cash?
It's going to the computer. I just bought a computer. I spent it.
So what happened to your cash account?
It went lower.
That's right. So whenever the asset goes up, it's a use. Now, if you sell that computer, then this asset would go down, but you'd have cash, so it'll be a source. Whenever the asset goes up, it's a use. When it goes down, it's a source. Let's move on to problem 4. What did the receivables do here? Anybody got problem 4?
Increase.
Is it a source or a use?
Uh, a use.
It's a use because you bought an asset. It's a use. Let's go on to problem 5. What did receivables do?
It went up 200, so it's a use.
Went up 200, so it's a use. We getting there now. And an 8.6, what did receivables do? They went up, so they're a use. So the template, and you know, you got a template. You're simply working with this template. It's already telling you decrease in the current asset, which are receivables and inventory, is going to be a source. If they increase, they're a use. It has the liabilities telling you the same thing. If they increase, they're a source. If they decrease, they're a use. It tells you to take out gains and losses on the sale of long-term asset and put the proceeds down here in part 2. Then you have the same thing with stock. If you issue stock as a source, if you buy it back, it's called treasury stock. It's a use. If you get a long-term loan, like a student loan, it's a source of cash. When you pay it back, it's a use, and dividends are always a use. So next time you should have these problems ready, and we'll go over them in class, just like we did them there, going account by account.
And are these problems the one you said that we need to do, like saying if we want to invest in a company or not, or is that the next
Correct.
one?
That's this one too. You get
Okay.
practice on doing it. Looking at your company, will you invest $1 million or will you not? Any other questions?
I know you
Oh,
sick of me, but which part should we be looking at to know if we want to invest in it or not?
Once again, there are 3 parts to a cash flow statement. There's operations, there are investments, and there's financing. In a good company, when we've netted everything, we would like to see the cash flowing from investments from part 1 positive. Say $1 million. This is what we're looking for. Part 2, we want the company to be investing and expanding. So we want this to be negative. Then we want the company to pay dividends and pay loans back. So we want this to be negative. We want the ending balance to be positive. So this is a guide of what it should look like. Okay. Part one, positive. If part one is not positive, something's wrong with this company. It's just like you without a job and a salary. Nobody's gonna want to marry you if you don't have a job and a salary. But with the company, it's the same. That's what part one represents, that for a company. If Macy's is not selling shoes, then things not good. It can't make money other ways forever. Macy's should be expanding. This should be negative. Macy's should be paying dividends and paying loans off. This shouldn't be negative, and Macy's should have positive cash. So instead of you waiting when someone comes to you waiting and saying, well, if it sounds like this is where I should invest my money, you got to look at those three parts. That's what you've got to do. There's zillions of companies. You got to have a 401k to retire, because definitely won't be any Social Security around for you all. So how you gonna retire? You got to invest in stocks. Can't just put your money in the bank and earn 0.2% and be able to retire. So people have 401k plans where they invest in stocks. Well, then you got to look at the financial statements, and not just the income statement, but the statement of cash flow. So that's why we do that. Any other questions?
Yes, can you review the first assignment that you talked about in the beginning of class?
Okay, the first assignment, this problem is due on Wednesday. We've worked half of it, over half of it already worked out. Then on next Tuesday, you got to tell me next class period, I want you to pick a company. This former student picked Accenture, a company that person wanted to work for. They were in MIS. They picked this consulting company. They had to look at the cash flow from operations, from investing, and from financing, and the net change in cash. This information is available for publicly traded companies, so you got to get a publicly traded company and you Google them for their cash flow statements. You will simply look at the cash flow statements for 3 years and tell me whether you would invest $1 million in that company, which is equivalent to going to work for that company. So this is an easy assignment. You didn't calculate nothing. She just pulled these numbers up. She talked about the 3 areas. She said the company is doing very well in operating. Okay, that said a few things about it based on the growth, and then she made a decision. So this is an hour or so at the most, maybe 2 hours at the most project, that if you do it like this, you can get all of these points. Got it? That's an easy assignment. You don't have to calculate anything. You just have to go in and pull that information off of the web. Anything else? Make sure you review your grades. See if you have any comments on next Wednesday, and then they'll come down. You only got a couple of days to let me know if any change. But I thought I'd put those in so we could see where we are right now. Now I'll have much more information in there, and by Wednesday of next week, so I should have the first period done. You would have finished your study problem, your cash flow paper, had your first exam, and we'll see how you're doing it down the first period. Are there any questions?